First, I wanted to share the reason I chose this topic. Well, obviously I'm a therapist, so that would be the #1 reason I'm interested in psychology and counseling and all of these things. And just so you guys have a little bit of a background, I'm now in full-time private practice. I have a practice in Newport and in Long Beach, but before that I ran an inpatient treatment center for eating disorders and trauma and drugs. So I have this extensive, I guess, therapy background, and what brought me to therapy really is just my own work, right? And so what I think is helpful and valuable for everyone is to be able to have a perspective of, like, what does it look like to be a good counselor to just our friends in an everyday life, and also how do we know who we want to go to for counseling, right? Because we can go to anyone for all kinds of things, and we often know to go to, is this better? Yeah. Oh, I guess I can hold it. I don't really want to though. Let's see. How's this? Better? Yeah. Okay, so anyway, the reason is so that we can have a better understanding of what it's like to be a good counselor, and then also who we should go to for counseling. And not in like a going to a therapist kind of way, because that's a different discussion, but really about, like, what do I look for in a friend that I'm going to for support, or how do I best support one of my friends. So this topic actually was, I think it was counseling based on spiritual principles, right? And as I was thinking about it, and thinking about what I exactly wanted to speak on, I realized that the counseling I do is not based on spiritual principles. It's based on what I learned in school, right? Which happens to be in line with a lot of the spiritual principles I eventually developed. But the truth of the matter is that I went to school and developed all of these, I think, a better understanding of what the principles and values are and qualifications of a good counselor are before I looked at all into what spirituality really is. So what ultimately happened is that my spiritual practice and meditation and yoga and all of this is supplemental to everything that I learned in school and in material and everyday life. And the summary, ultimately what we want to kind of get to, is that spiritual life and everything we can learn in that should ideally supplement our material life, and it's not this like whole brand new thing. So eventually we'll kind of get there. But I also want you guys to walk away with knowing a couple of good principles to operate off of if you're going to someone for counseling or if you're receiving counseling. Does that sound okay? Good, because that's what I was planning. So before I jump into what my experience is, what do you guys think are some good values or ideas? What do you look for in a counselor?
Good listener.
A good listener? Yeah. What does that mean, to be a good listener? Who said that?
It means to really hear and try to not impose your beliefs without fully understanding them.
Okay, so like a non-judgmental piece. Okay. Yeah. Who else?
Guidance. Someone to relate to.
Okay, relatable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what does that mean?
Just somebody that understands or has kind of been through some stuff, somebody that's, seems like they're grounded.
Okay. So they seem like not only can they relate, but they're grounded in what they're talking about. It's not just that, like, they're currently going through the struggle.
Right.
Okay. So we've got non-judgmental, like have done some version of self-reflection and relatable. Mm-hmm. Someone said something back here.
Guidance.
Oh yeah, guidance.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so they have an understanding of whatever the topic is, not just pulling things from anywhere. Okay. Yeah. Who else?
Yeah, someone who has stability and ethics, like an ethical, stable person.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, someone moving with integrity, right? And you don't want someone that's just like has no morals, Thank you. All right. So we don't want someone who has no morals guiding us. And I guess these are some of the morals that we're talking about. Non-judgmental, that kind of stuff. Okay. Anything else?
Well, for me, it's important if I'm asking counseling from anyone that they also understand God, or I believe they understand God.
Okay. So for you, whomever you're talking to for counseling, do you have a mutual understanding of God, or just like God in general?
Well, it doesn't have to be agreeable on the same terms, but that, you know, they're living in connectedness and in alignment with the truth of the creation.
Okay. What does that mean?
Which to me means there is one God, and they are the creator of all of us, and the illusions are playing out in this life in a way where that person understands the reason situations are happening in relation also to the divine, not just in material terms of you're having this stasis or these functions are happening in your mind, this is what you need, you know, you need this sort of medication, but someone who can diagnose things based off of divine terms, not just worldly terms.
Okay, so someone who can see a bigger picture and know that it's not like the world doesn't revolve around us kind of thing. Okay, great. Yeah. Anybody else?
Oh, someone honest.
Honest? Yeah, that's good. You definitely don't want someone lying to you
Well,
or
more like
guiding
they'll,
you.
they'll tell you how it is without sugarcoating.
Right. So like direct also.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want, if you actually are trying to have some type of self-improvement, you don't want someone who's like kind of telling you the truth, kind of not. That's nice. Yeah. That means you actually are willing and want to grow. Okay, so we have grounded, we have honest, we have who knows that the world doesn't revolve around us and that there's something bigger. What else do we have? Non-judgmental, good listener. These are all really good.
Patient.
Patient, yeah, super important.
Someone with the ability to shift perspectives.
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Someone with the ability to shift perspectives, not
Yeah.
just see from their own lens, but kind of put themselves in other people's shoes.
Open-minded, empathic,
True.
right? Like, not attached to their belief about something.
Correct.
Open to learning. Qualified. Nice. Yeah.
Someone who has the ability to hold a safe space or share a safe space with
This is a great one. This is actually one of my, I didn't think of it actually as one of the ones I was going to share, but I'm going to speak to it now. Because one of the first things that we have to do if we're going to be counseling anyone or receiving counseling is we have to feel like we're in a safe space. Right? You're not going to share with someone if you feel like they're judgmental or that they're going to go tell somebody else right after, or that they're going to be dishonest, or that they're going to be manipulative, or they're going to use it against you, right? And so all of the things that, or a lot of the things that people have discussed is also what you're lending to, in that we have to create a safe space. And here, everything kind of everyone else said lends to how to create a safe space. Super important. Have you guys, has anyone ever been to therapy here? Oh, great.
Oh, great.
I mean, whatever. I'm obviously into therapy, but you can go into whatever you want. But have you guys ever experienced where a therapist or even a friend where it doesn't feel like it's a safe space and you don't necessarily have a good rapport and it's like a very awkward conversation and you don't really get anywhere, right? Yeah. This is a huge deal. It's for some reason not something people really think about, of how much a relationship matters in counseling or therapy, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Any others? Yeah.
Someone who can make you feel comfortable. Like,
Yeah.
not be like pushy, but like kind of like hug-you-ish, you know? Not like literally, but
Yeah, you feel comfort, safe, right? Cared for, even though they can also be really direct, and that's an art, right? To be able to have someone feel cared for and also be direct with them at the same time.
I think holding space is important too. What I mean by that is not only hold the space through listening, but also just really allowing you not only to feel comfortable, but also maybe even reveal things to yourself that you weren't aware of. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm going to expand on it a little and you tell me if this is what
Yeah.
works. A lot of times we'll talk to people and they want to fix whatever our problem is. right? And there's not necessarily space for us to just have an emotion, whether it's sadness or anger or frustration or whatever it is. And like we express some level of disturbance, and then the person we're talking to is like, oh, okay, here's how you fix it. Like, you don't have to feel this way because of this. Or, that's not really what happened, this is what happened. Or, okay, here's how we can fix it, you can say this. Right? And what that does, well, a couple of things. One, it makes it so that we don't actually have space for what the emotion really is there. So even though we're trying to help us, we end up probably feeling pretty invalidated. Because it's like, oh, you have that emotion? Okay, we have to fix it. Like as if the emotion is wrong. That's the unstated premise there, is that we have to fix it. Like your sadness, it has to go away. Right? And it makes it feel like it's unsafe to have that emotion. And then the other problem with it is that we actually just didn't process it. So now it's invalidated and we haven't processed it. And that's something that a lot of times people really struggle to do, hold space for someone else. Because if I'm making space for your sadness, that means that like I might have sadness that comes up too. And I don't want to deal with that. So that means that you're not going to have space for sadness and I'm not going to have space for sadness and we're going to fix it and it's going to be great. Yeah, so really knowing how to properly hold space is a huge deal. Super nice. Okay. Any final one or I'm going to move on?
I would say transparency.
What do you mean by that?
I would say transparency in the sense of, I would personally not want a therapist, but I mean, when I think of someone who would be a good therapist, I would think transparent with their own self as well.
Sure.
You know, also being very honest in the way that they deal with things. Because we can preach and we can preach, but if we're not really applying that, and then you're not being transparent with that, like, okay, well you can do this, but I don't do that. And
right.
I also deal with the same thing every time.
It's a little hypocritical, right?
So I would say transparency.
Yeah, almost, you're also kind of saying congruency. You know? Like what I'm saying is consistent with what I'm doing, or what I believe. Right?
Yeah, just also honesty too.
Right.
Just being honest with each situation.
Yeah, not putting on a facade.
Yeah, exactly. Not putting themselves on a pedestal.
Yeah, like an equalize. It's funny because there's an innate, I guess, kind of like power differential. Kind of when you're giving someone feedback. But it's important to stay humble at the same time. Know, right back to what you said back there, that we don't know someone else's experience. We haven't actually been in their shoes. You know, and so how can we listen and create a safe space and have space for the emotions so that we can do all the things you guys touched on. Yeah. So, very good. I'm going to give kind of 4, I might do 5 points of main ones that you can hopefully walk away with, right? And they're kind of a summary of all of these things. And I'm going to add on how spiritual life kind of upgrades these principles. Right? So the first one is self-reflection. And it's kind of similar to what you just spoke to. But if you guys think about it in your own experience, if you've ever had a friend or a therapist, counselor, whatever it may be, who hasn't done their own work, like giving you feedback, directing you, but doesn't necessarily know exactly what you're talking about, or does, but it's like is guiding you on how to not drink anymore, but they actively like don't make it to work because they're too hungover, but they're giving you advice, you know? How does that feel when that happens? It doesn't feel like you can take someone seriously, right? There's like this level of hypocrisy. So really being able to self-reflect and walking our talk is important. And that was something that I believed before any level of spirituality, but it like seriously upgraded once I got more involved in spiritual life. And so I'm going to give you guys a brief brief story for each one of the principles because I think it makes it stick a little bit better, and also it's like they can be mildly interesting. So when speak to the value of self-reflection. One of them is, the first one is, so I was director of an eating disorder treatment. And but also as a kid, I had a severe eating disorder and went to a bunch of treatment and all these kinds of things. Now I didn't tell the patients that because that's weird, right? but it's like a poor boundary, in my opinion. Everyone has their own opinion, but it was important. Like if I hadn't worked on my stuff, then for me to treat them would have been just disaster, really. It would have been really triggering for me. They probably wouldn't have been able to feel the difference, and I wouldn't have been able to guide them on the steps of recovery because I hadn't done it myself, right? And so this idea, when I was first coming to spirituality, what really was powerful for me is the value that spirituality kind of innately has on self-reflection. It's very difficult to make progress in whatever version of spirituality you go into without reflecting upon yourself and what truth is for yourself and trying to upgrade. Right? So the material principle was work on yourself so you're not bringing it into the therapy. Right? And then spiritually, that really also was compounded. Does that make sense? So that's the first one, is self-reflection and working on yourself is essential. And kind of to double down on that, we have to know when it's not something that we're appropriate or qualified to be working on, right? Or we have to do a bunch of work to be able to help someone with that. So additionally, I was working with people with a significant history of trauma. And I thought I had trauma as a kid also. And I thought I had worked on it. I'd gone to, obviously, therapy for many, many years. And as soon as I started doing deep trauma work with people, I was like, oh my God, I can't help these people. I don't this is a problem for me. How am I going to help you? And so I ended up, fortunately, finding some incredible, it ended up being spiritual guidance, but which I was surprised by, to work on. And so as I grew in my own self-reflection and in my own progress, my own process in my own life, I was able to make a significant difference in my therapeutic life. And it's interesting because I already thought that self-reflection was important, and then I actually experienced how not being fully tuned into your own history and what you bring to the room, how if we're not tuned into it, how negatively, or just maybe it's just an equal. It doesn't even have to be negative, but it definitely can be way better if we've done our own work. So that's the first one. Questions on that? Okay. The second one is, this is very important, and I don't know why a lot of counselors don't think about this, is that people are innately good, and we should have hope for our friends or our family or patients, whatever they happen to be. This is considered a strengths-based approach. Whatever. In therapy, I don't really care about the titles, but if you ever have had, and this happens a lot, therapists or counselors that are like, yeah, well, it might be kind of hopeless, and there's nothing you can really do. That's that. Or that is kind of bad that you did that. There is maybe something wrong with you. And you'd be surprised that actually does happen, which is disturbing. But it can also happen subconsciously. Because even if in therapy we believe that people are, in our day-to-day lives, we believe people are innately good, right? Like Brady over here, I'm going to tell him he's innately good. But I think, yeah, but also you were born wrong. You kind of have to make up for all the stuff that you maybe did in a past life or, anything like this, right? So on the one hand, I say that you're innately good, and the other hand, my other beliefs, whether they come from my day-to-day life or my whatever it may be, if I also believe that we're innately wrong and have this thing to make up for, there's a huge disconnect in what I'm practicing and teaching in therapy and also what I believe in my day-to-day life. So I didn't have any real deep spirituality before I came to Bhakti Yoga, right? But I did know that people are innately good and that we should persistently have hope for people, and that there's always a chance for change if people want it, right? And so then the spiritual path that I went on was one of the main principles in it is that we're all innately good, right? And so again, the spiritual path was a beautiful layer on top of what I'd already experienced in material life. Does that make sense? So self-reflection and that we're innately good. Another one is to not be attached, which you can take in a really wrong direction. Because if we take it too far, then it's I don't care, nothing matters, blah, blah, blah. And that's an excellent route for kind of like dissociation, which you can do, like whatever, but it's not necessarily the healthiest thing, just from a clinical standpoint. But we also can't be attached to the results of whatever we're doing with our friends, our family, in sessions. Like, have you ever had someone that you really wanted them to have a certain result after you're helping them, and then they don't, and then you're just like, oh my God, why did I help you? It was a waste of time. You don't care about my opinion. These kinds of things. Nodding heads, yeah. And it's because we got too attached to some like goal we made for them in our own head. And if we do that, we're not even necessarily guiding someone on the path they want to be on. So let's say that Hari Bhakta over here drinks all the time, which obviously he doesn't. And I think that it's a problem. But he doesn't. He just kind of wants to cut back. Maybe not like in the mornings anymore. And I'm kind of guiding him to not be drinking in the mornings anymore. And now we're kind of going in a weird direction because I'm attached to him not doing that. I'm attached to him not drinking at all, but he's attached to just not drinking in the mornings. And so now I'm guiding him somewhere he doesn't want to go. And now the counseling isn't about him, it's about me and my own opinion and how we're going to guide you, and how I'm going to help you, and how I'm going to be this great person and like heal the world. Right? And so that's dangerous because we're not actually being there for somebody else. We've somehow morphed it into our own thing. So we have self-reflection, people are innately good, and that it's not about us. Right? And we can't be attached to the results of whatever someone else is doing.
I think that's a really good point.
Thank you.
That was really good.
Good. I'm happy.
And just in general, like we all do that with our friends and
right?
family. And so that's a very beautiful point.
We bring our own stuff into whatever we do, which is why we have to be super aware and have self-reflection. Because if we don't, then we're just, And so the spiritual way that compounds is that, whatever you believe, the universe, divine, whatever you want, it's not about us, right? And I know that I can't control everything that goes on, which sometimes is a relief and sometimes I'm upset about, right? And so then the last one we'll do is non-judgmental. And this kind of lends to what most of you spoke about, which is creating a safe space. And the non-judgmental piece includes compassion, it includes empathy, it includes patience, right? And you guys can imagine or just do your own thought experiment of what it would be like to be in a session or just talking to someone. We all talk to someone who seems super judgmental. And we no longer, first of all, it brings up our own fear because we probably already judge ourselves, right? And it doesn't create space for us to actually explore. And so the last piece is non-judgmentalness, and the spirituality I've explored really values curiosity, being able to ask questions authentically, and being able to non-judgmentally and safely move forward in our lives. So the summary really is that everything that we do, it was supposed to be about counseling based on spiritual principles, but the truth of the matter is that spiritual life should really be a supplement and upgrade from our material life. And it's not like we have these newfound spiritual principles that we operate off of, right? It's that we have like these material values and principles, and spirituality should make sense and upgrade us from those. Does that make sense? Any questions? Yeah.
Could you repeat that one more time? Spiritual principles are supplemental
to our material principles or values. It's not like we have to create this whole new wheel, right? They should make sense.
I think that I thank you for this point with the non-judgmental, because I've been kind of going through this as a new awakening. I've been feeling that basically when you're being judgmental, you're being against reality. Reality is occurring, and my opinion is exerting, and I'm trying to alter reality. And I think the backbone of the flip side, the upside down of judgmental is unconditional. and so we need to have unconditional love when we're listening,
Yeah.
receiving, and also giving, our time, and so it's a muscle, it's a practice, and so it's, I've just been working on it every day, and I'm just trying to flip it to unconditional love. Yeah.
Super nice.
Yeah.
I really like that.
And unconditional understanding too.
Yeah,
Just to be understanding instead of judgmental.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Sure. And then one more with hope, because you kind of like one A was hope, where 2A was hope.
Yeah.
So where is the invisible spiritual line with hope? Because sometimes when I think with hope, I'm really being not okay with the present moment because I'm trying to look into the future. I'm having hope. So where is that spiritual line for you? Invisible line of, we'll just hope for the best for them. But where you got to put action in.
Yeah.
So what's the action you give to backbone that hope and not cross that invisible line, spiritual line?
I think I've understood your question, which is, I have hope, which almost means like I want something else, right?
Yeah,
I hope it's
I'm
gonna
not
get
okay
there.
with now. I'm not. It's because hope is like I'm not okay with right now, so I'm just gonna hope that this happens. I'm
Right.
in the future.
So I'm gonna shift your perspective of what it looks like to have hope.
Yeah.
And what that means is that hope doesn't mean that I'm also not accepting of where I'm at right now.
Okay, good.
And for what it's worth, acceptance is not the same as approving. So I don't have to approve of the fact that
right.
I got a ticket or whatever.
That's right.
And I can hope that I don't get one when I'm driving home. I didn't, but
Correct.
anyway.
Yeah.
You
won't.
Right? So we don't have to not be accepting of our current state in order to also have hope. And so we can be accepting of our current state, though not necessarily approving. We can think about what action needs to be taken in order to get there, which is different for each situation, and have hope. So it's really 3 things.
Yeah, I like that. I'm glad. Yeah, the line wasn't crossed there, so that's good.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
got it. Thank you.
Final question?
I work in mental health, and I have a really hard time not trying to give people the answers and trying to fix them every time they come in. I want to give them good advice, and I think I need to work more on just listening. Do you have any advice in that department? You mentioned it, but in different words towards the beginning of your talk. And any advice there?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to say is thank you for sharing. And I think one of the things that's super admirable and that will do you the best good is that you're being honest with yourself about where you're at and what your process is. That's like number one most important thing, is for us to be honest with ourselves about what we bring to the room or bring to our conversation. And I guess this is a pretty direct answer, but you asked, so there's probably, we all have fear about creating space for emotion, right? So there's potentially a fear you might have about like holding that space because of what it might bring up for you. I don't know. Also, people are often trained to fix things, so that could also be part of it. And the last one is because sometimes it feels better to see a positive outcome faster. So if we can provide a solution and fix it, then it feels like we did a better job. And that isn't always, fixing it doesn't necessarily mean we did a better job. We can define a better job as, does this person feel heard? Do they feel safe? Do they feel understood? Like, we can define it in a different way. In which case, A, you'll feel more successful, but B, it's not really about you anyway. Right? Does that help?
Yeah, it helps a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking. That was great.
I think, Shane, I think one thing is that pausing when agitated about one, just take a step back, breathe, have a meditation on it, and then visit it again, and then see where you're aligned going forward.
Thanks so much. That's good.
Okay. Thank you, guys.